with our high touch enterprise clients and really manage that day-to-day relationship that I have seen that was really elevated the moment I started bringing value, the moment I started bringing ROI into my discussions with my clients. It has made a tremendous change. So very happy to be presenting and to have this opportunity today, and really looking forward to getting to know everyone more. Lloyd, you want to go ahead with introductions?
Certainly. Thank you, Thomas. So my name is Lloyd Bureau. My role at Coveo is a business value manager. So what I do is I work with our prospective customers to identify the potential financial value that the Coveo platform can bring, but also working with existing clients to measure the value that is realized as they become customers. So really, a full closed loop effort to talk about value at every step of the customer journey, and ensuring that we're delivering on that value as well. So helping them show what's possible and then measuring the outcomes. Prior to joining Coveo, I worked for a little over a year and a half in management consulting at Accenture. So have some experience there working in a consultative approach, which is what we do in business value here at Coveo. I also have some experience in entrepreneurship. I've started some online stores that have grown quite a lot in the last years in the e-commerce space and consumer packaged goods. So that's a lot of my background is entrepreneurial, but yeah, working in consulting, and today in my role at Coveo, working with clients to talk about value, measure it, and project it on a regular basis. Very happy to be here today and talk about this very critical topic on how we can bring value-driven conversations to a customer success organization. Yeah, we'll get right into it.
Excellent. Thank you, Lloyd. So here is our agenda for today. Lloyd will set the framework by first and foremost defining what is business value management. I will then touch upon what it means to have those conversations with your clients, why they're so important. I'll then also bridge the gap between operational metrics and strategic business outcomes. And then to wrap up, Lloyd will give us some guidelines on how to get started with building a value framework for your CS organization. We did mention this at the beginning, but please feel free to unmute yourself, jump in with questions. We want to make this as collaborative as possible, but I do believe that Loic will be manning the chat as well if you do have any questions in that format. So I will pass it over to Lloyd to discuss today's topic, what is business value management?
Great. Well, thank you, Thomas. So before we start discussing about building a value framework, it's important to level set and understand what business value management is. And I like to start by talking about where this effort and interest comes from in our market. So obviously, we're talking about the technology space, and a lot of customer success organizations have emerged in the technology space, but business value is a little bit more recent with trendsetters such as SAP, Workday, ServiceNow, Salesforce that have put together business value teams. But here at Coveo, we've been doing business value for about 4 years now, and really it's been a nice differentiator in our practice and our ability to help make our sales process more value driven, but also our customer success relationships also focused around value. And where this comes from is essentially in the past with on-prem business models for technology companies, the financial risk really sat with the technology buyer, because with an on-prem solution, the technology provider makes its profit right at the time of the sale. So the responsibility to drive value really sat with the buyer. With a SaaS business model, on the other hand, the financial risk shifts to the technology provider because they depend on recurring revenues to be profitable. They don't make their profit at the moment that the company, that the client signs their engagement. It's really in the long run, as they can maintain their customer base, reduce churn, and keep most of their revenues, that they can be profitable. And so as a result of this shift in the technology market, we've seen value generation and measurement that have become critical for SaaS companies' ability to retain their clients. So let's talk a little bit more about what a framework for business value could look like. Essentially, what drives value creation is anything that supports your company's or your client's strategic objectives. What are the business outcomes that they are trying to achieve and looking to improve? And so value creation is really split into two areas. We have financial value and non-financial value, both just as important to quantify and measure on a regular basis so that we understand what type of value is being created by these initiatives. When we talk about financial value, we'll generally discuss things such as revenue growth, operational efficiency, cost avoidance or reduction, or even innovation capability. An example being freeing up some, if you have a technology that frees up the time of your engineers to focus on more innovation driven work, you can gain an edge on the market in your ability to deliver strong products on a regular basis. So just an example there to get you thinking. But when we're talking about non-financial value, that's also very critical. This relates to elements that affect your customers, your employees, your partners in the market, as well as the communities that you are operating in and live in. And so being able to measure both together gives you really the full picture of the impact of a specific technology that supports value creation and supports, again, the strategic business objectives. But moving on, essentially, we believe that what gets measured gets done. But how can you measure the value of a technology? Well, essentially, our definition of business value management is the process of establishing, measuring, and communicating the value that a technology is generating for a specific business. And the way we establish this is by building a framework that brings together business outcomes, value drivers, and operational metrics. So we determine business value by looking at the business outcomes, the targeted improvements that your clients are looking to achieve. But how do you measure business outcomes? We use what we call value drivers, which are derived from a combination of operational metrics and financial data that are related to the technology initiative at hand. And what do we need to measure value drivers? We need operational metrics, robust analytics that allow us to be able to derive improvements over time. Combining those with financial data leads to positive business outcomes being measured. So moving forward, essentially, when we're establishing business value, we're looking to answer a very specific question. If we had not purchased this technology, what costs would the business have incurred that we did not end up incurring? Or if we're talking about revenue, what revenue opportunities would the business have missed out on? And here is a little bit of a visual on how we can think about this. And really calculating business value, it's a thought experiment. Essentially looking at the baseline cost rates, the operational metrics that your clients are going to see impacted by the technology at hand. You can project, you can do a straight line projection of the status quo and being able to understand how the trends are measuring. In this case, we're looking at growing costs. A company that is facing increased costs in an area, they're looking for a solution to mitigate that growth in costs. They'll be buying a technology that is going to impact this. And after they go live, the business value of the technology is the difference between the projected costs and the actual costs that were realized with the technology from the point of go live. Essentially, the difference between the baseline KPIs before, which are critical to measure to begin with, and the KPIs observed after the technology is implemented and the initiative is complete. So I hope this gives you kind of an idea of how to think about business value. And now I'll move it back to Thomas, who's going to talk about how to have these conversations with your clients.
Thank you, Lloyd. First and foremost, I just want to pause and see, do we have any questions from the audience?
Quick question, actually, I do want to ask. So I've seen a lot of posts on LinkedIn recently from you guys talking about how Coveo saved Tableau millions and millions of dollars. Is that how you're calculating that? Is based on the cost of acquisition of Coveo solutions and then any opportunities that they've gained from the solution?
Yeah, I definitely can talk a little bit more about that. So Tableau has a use case where they have Coveo case deflection activated in their support portal. So when customers go to create a case, they are served up some relevant content as they fill out the case form. This is powered by AI and machine learning models that surface relevant information to that case. If customers go and click on a specific piece of content and do not end up submitting a case, then we count that as a case being deflected. Counting the number of events since Coveo Go Live times the average cost per case for the support organization, that's how we determine the value that is generated from case deflection. And where the ability to track this through our analytics is what allows us to have these conversations on a regular basis and always measure from the same point. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
Perfect. Any other questions from the group? Otherwise, I will move forward with value-driven client relationships. As you can see from Lloyd's comments and the content he reviewed, it is pretty evident that bringing in business value in your relationships with your client will truly elevate them. I have seen my relationships jump to the next level. My relationships with my day-to-day client as well, and more precisely with my executive sponsors. And on this slide here, I want to cover really and what's in it for you, but what's in it for your clients as well. And you can understand that those two are very closely tied together, because ultimately, as a CSM, whenever something benefits your client, it indirectly benefits you as well. For the clients, I have seen business value bring such value as far as reviewing tangible results that support project efforts. It speaks more to executive sponsors if you're able to quantify the value that the technology brings to them. How I usually pitch this exercise to my day-to-day contacts is, let me make you a hero to your leadership. Let's celebrate, let's quantify the success of our partnership. And even further to that, it also shows what's possible. You're able to demonstrate with the efforts, with the resources dedicated to the project today, that you're able to achieve the current results. So it can only project to what's possible if they were to dedicate more resources to that relationship. In line with that, it allows your clients to make more informed decision-making. It really helps at the renewal process. Whenever you're able to quantify the value you bring to your client, it can make renewals a no-brainer if you can very, very clearly outweigh the value of their annual contract value. And you can make a point to have them dedicated more resources, more time, more effort to your project in order to drive, again, more and more value. Very clearly in that line of thought, it allows your clients to prioritize resources, project improvements based on the value that you bring. It's much easier to make a case to your executive sponsors to bring in more resources, more headcount to your project if you're able to quantify the value you bring to them. And lastly, as far as ROI measurement and an ongoing success plan, there needs to be a very clear handoff from your sales organization to your customer success organization. And that documentation of business value and what it means for the client will be at the root of the success plan for your clients. Ultimately, it's going to determine how success is measured. Whatever your client is trying to accomplish, and that's how we define business outcomes or strategic goals, those need to be documented at the customer success handoff, because all of those are going to dictate the efforts that you put together with the client. Those are all going to dictate where you bring this initiative with your client. ultimately those business outcomes are the why. Why did your client choose your solution? So you need to make sure that you are aligned between your sales org and your customer success org and your client. You need to be aligned as to what are you working towards. And that's when you bring in business value, is how can you quantify that? Very, very clearly, you can see that there's a ton of value in bringing those discussions for your clients. As a CSM or as part of someone in a customer success org, it's very important to bring those discussions as well for a variety of points. And it's going to really, as I mentioned earlier, it's going to bring your relationships with your executive sponsors and with your accounts to the next level. It's a great tool to initiate or to rekindle a relationship that may have been lacking with an executive sponsor. A great forum for those discussions is executive business reviews. We can all agree that executive business reviews should be tailored around executive sponsors. It should be tailored around the topics that they care about. And having those presentations tailored around the value that you bring to them will speak to them much more than reviewing operational metrics or success metrics that would matter much more to your day-to-day contact. It's a very powerful tool to assist in renewals and upsells. It's a great tool in your arsenal to work with your renewal managers and your CS org. All in all, it makes a healthier account base, and we've seen that it leads to strong advocates. If you're able to showcase, again, that you value that your technology brings, it really furthers that relationship, and you're putting yourself in a better position to bring in case studies, advocates with those clients. Any questions, comments on that topic?
I have a question. Does your sales teams have any implication in this process because they are collecting a lot of information that could be useful in this? So how does it work at Coveo, or what is the best practice?
Yeah, we're asking our sales executive to document those strategic goals, those business outcomes very early on in the sales process. It guides conversations for them. It allows them to have guidelines as to what the client is trying to accomplish. And even further to that, the value drivers that we spoke of that ultimately will allow you to quantify value. We're asking all our sales exec to document those because it's at the root, at the success plan for the client.
Perfect. Thanks.
Perfect. Moving forward, I wanted to take the time to bridge the gap between the strategic goals, which would be here business outcomes, and the day-to-day operational metrics. It's a very, very important thought process that you need to have when building your business value framework. You need to establish the difference between your operational metrics and how you will ultimately quantify the success of your client's business outcomes. A good way that I think about it and that I talked with my clients is what data matters to your day-to-day contact is going to be very different than what matters to their boss's boss or to someone at the C-suite. You need to understand that you won't be able to quantify the value you bring to your clients with operational metrics. You need to tie them back to the strategic goal and bring entire value to that strategic goal, because it will speak much more to your executive sponsors. Something that we see at Coveo is with our agents. So we power search engines. Like Lloyd said, we power search engines to allow users to find the content they're looking for in a more efficient and quicker manner. In the context of support agents, we enable support agents to find solutions to cases more effectively. So they're going to be able to handle more cases and provide a better experience. So if we use this thought process and this experiment to compare operational metrics and business outcomes in this example, when I speak with my day-to-day contacts and my clients, they're going to care about, are the agents, are they engaging with the content? Are we delivering the right content to them? Is it the most relevant content? So we're going to be looking at very, very focused metrics That would be more the click-through rate or the average click rank. That would be metrics of the user experience for the agent. But that's not going to allow us to necessarily quantify the value that we bring to the client and we bring to the agents. And that's when you take a step back and you tie those values back to the strategic goals for your client. Well, if the agents engage with the content, they're finding solutions to the cases faster. So they're going to handle more cases. The case volume is going to be impacted. The handle time of the cases are going to be impacted. If we deliver the right content for the users, well, their experience is better. They're going to have an easier time on board and be proficient. Well, if they have a better experience and they can handle cases faster, well, your customer experience is going to improve as well. And again, if we deliver the right content to them, we're going to handle more cases as the agents. And it's those metrics that will allow you to quantify the ROI or the value you bring to your clients. It's not going to be the day-to-day metrics that you focus on with your clients, with your contacts, that will tie to value. So again, that's an early on thought process that you need to have in mind when you want to quantify the partnership with your clients. And Lloyd is going to work on that and cover, again, how to build that framework.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom. So moving forward to looking at how to build a business value framework for your organization, it really starts with understanding where business value fits in your specific customer journey. So the way we do it at Coveo is at onboarding, we already start talking about business value in customer success. Ideally, we've, not ideally, but all of our sales representatives always grab at least one business outcome that the customer is hoping to achieve with the Coveo implementation, why they purchased the solution. We can also work on mapping out the value drivers that are likely to be impacted based on what we know is possible with the technology. Again, based on the case studies that we've done in the past, it's really a self-fulfilling loop that keeps improving as you practice this. But really at onboarding, it's a great time to level set with your client and talk about documenting exactly what they expect to achieve or wish to achieve as part of their implementation, and also align with the client during the handoff from sales to make sure that this is clear, that we have some clear objectives to work towards, and that we can then begin to work on a plan to measure them and improve them. At implementation, the customer success involvement is to ensure that the analytics capabilities are in place so that we can measure as many of these relevance metrics that we call, or the operational metrics that we will need to be able to measure success over time, those that relate the most closely as possible to the business outcome, and operational metrics that relate as closely as possible to the technology that you are providing and helping support. So that's really how you can tie everything back together. The next part where we're going to talk about business value is in the first time to value. That's usually going to be in an executive business review, where you're going to want to have some value-driven conversations about the data and the operational metrics that you've collected. It's really a great time to start measuring value, reporting on it, so that if it's good value that you're reporting and it's positive, then you know what kind of track you're on, and you know the potential that is likely to occur. But it's also an opportunity, if value is relatively low, to look a little bit deeper into the customer implementation to see if there's improvement opportunities. And really, that's the core role of a customer success manager, is to look into improvement opportunities. But you can't tell how critical an improvement opportunity would be unless you've quantified it in terms of dollar value that you can report to your customer executives. And then as your customers find more and more success with your technology in this relationship, they will likely become advocates. A lot of our customers actually like to broadcast the success that they've seen with the Coveo implementation. It makes the project champion internally shine within their organization, but also positions the company as leaders in their markets. So being able to build some joint success stories helps both your client be relevant in their market, but also helps your organization have more proof points of the value that you can deliver, so that you can bring that back to your sales organization and start that whole process again with a new customer. But really, this is an exercise that needs to be done on a regular basis, so that value is one of the main things that you discuss with your customers. So moving on to how you can start thinking about a framework. MJ, you have a question?
Yes, I just wanted to, because it's a great framework, and I was just curious to see if someone from the audience here has something similar in their organization that resembles, adding the business value conversation in their customer journey. I know the customer journey is an exercise that involves not just customer success, but also other departments and other teams. So anyone who wants to maybe share or ask around this or a thought. So this is such a valuable slide. So I wanted to get a sense. Anyone?
Okay, I'll go. Over here at Amelia real quick. We're trying to get there. I think this is sort of our 2022 dream, where we have a couple key metrics in mind. So average cart size, cart abandonment, things like that we can provide and show value to the customer. A number of in-person transactions versus self-serve online transactions, for example. But I don't think we're at the stage where we mapped out at the sales stage what those objectives would be. We're kind of coming in at the back end of it saying, here's all the great things you've done this year, without having kind of established what their objectives were. So I think it's really interesting that we need to maybe consider establishing those KPIs before we start working with the client.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And really, it starts with measuring what has happened to know what is possible for the future for other customers. So you're really on the right track to being able to build this out. One challenge that you might run into is tying back the impact of your technology on these specific KPIs. So looking at ways in analytics to track attribution or different touch points where your technology had an impact on those cart sizes is going to be critical in order to ensure that your ROI conversations are as credible as possible. And that's also something that we do on a regular basis with our commerce customers. So yeah, you're happy to hear about that. You're on the right track. All right, so here is, and again, this should be a set of questions that will guide your reflections moving forward in order to build your own success framework for your value framework for your customer success organization. Starting with business outcomes, really at a high level, ask yourself, what does your product do, and why would your clients buy your product? And if they are successful with your product, what will they be able to achieve? Are going to save time, money, increase sales, improve an experience? It could be a variety of things, but that's really the questions you need to ask yourself when you're devising this framework that you can present back to your customers. In terms of value drivers, for every business outcome, what are the most closely related measure of success, whether financial or non-financial? And can you trace a line in the sand that is establish a baseline from before to after your product is being used? It's really important to capture that data in time so that you know where you're starting, and you can have that correlation with the implementation and the go live of your technology versus the realized results as you get to the next EBR. Also, you need to ask yourself, is there a financial value tied to the improvement in each of these measures? If there is, then that's a financial value driver. If there isn't, it might be an operational metric or a value driver that has to be determined as part of this analysis. And if there's no financial value, that's what I meant. How aligned is this measure to your client's overall strategy? You'll think, very quickly about customer satisfaction as not a vector of revenue, but still a very important metric to understand the success of your organization in their space in regards to customers. Finally, for supporting metrics, for every value driver that you've identified, what data points do you need to baseline and measure over time in order to calculate these value drivers? Next is to understand, where does the data live? Do you have access to this data directly? Is it with your client? Can there be some overlap? Can there be some sharing? Is there potential resistance to sharing this data? And how can we work around this? You can have some MNDAs, agreements in place to ensure that they feel secure in sharing this data. But really, it goes back to the points that Thomas mentioned earlier, is as much as they can share, you can help them quantify the success that they're getting. And this is good for them internally as well. So really identifying the data that you need, that's the last step in being able to put together that framework and really splitting it out. And really the potential is virtually infinite. You'll see sometimes when you're working with your customers to measure the realizations or the outcomes, you'll see some things that you hadn't even thought about, and that just becomes an extra arrow to your arsenal that you can use moving forward. So I want to show you a bit more about examples of what this looks like in practice, and we're keeping it fairly simple with our support agent example. Coveo provides technology that helps surface relevant information for agents to solve cases faster by reducing the time they spend on search and improving search relevancy when they're solving cases. The business outcomes that are expected are therefore streamlined support costs and positive customer relationships. Support costs being streamlined are broken down into a variety of value drivers. The first one being reduced cost per case. How do we measure this? We look at the average handling time multiplied by the cost rate of those specific agents. The fully loaded cost, which includes overhead, benefits, technology that they use to perform their role, and everything that is needed there. That's how you multiply by the time, the cost per case. So cost per case A minus cost per case B, ideally a reduction there, times the number of cases affected by Coveo. That's how we measure cost per case. Cost of escalation, that's another value driver, essentially measured by the escalation rate times the cost per escalation, which we help our clients quantify as well. Reduce agent time to proficiency, that's a value driver that is measured as the agent time to proficiency over time fluctuates. And that's really a measure that your customers are going to tell you how they think about time to proficiency. It really lies with them. You need to really meet your customer halfway in a lot of these, but the overall framework still applies. And then improved employee satisfaction is going to be seen in your employee satisfaction score, but the value driver that supports streamlined support costs is improved employee satisfaction, because more satisfied employees are less likely to churn and are more likely to provide good service to your customers. Another business outcome to drive positive customer relationships could be improved customer satisfaction, which can be measured by a CSAT score. But there is also Net Promoter Score, Customer Effort Score, and there are even others that I'm sure other companies use, but those are the three main ones that we observe. So really, this is an example. I hope it helps kind of put into context and into the reality of what we mean by this framework that you can work to build. Now, the last part I wanted to touch upon is a big question that arises during these discussions is how can we have discussions about potentially low value, or what are the main building blocks that need to be in place in order to drive value? We know that technology alone is not going to be driving value unless we have all these critical success factors in place to drive value. So, there are some things that lie with the provider and others that lie with the client. This is just an example of what we talk about with our clients, but on our, on Coveo's side, we have design and integration, ongoing training and coaching, as well as technical support that will be critical success factors in this relationship. But on the client side, they also have responsibilities to drive value. It goes with business alignment, user interface and user experience, content management for a knowledge base for agents, for example, change management to make sure they adopt the solution in their day-to-day work. Again, adoption is another critical one, as well as continuous improvement using the analytics that we provide them to make informed decisions about their content strategy, about their support organization, and ensuring that they leverage the full capabilities here. So to finish off, this was a lot of information today, very aware of this. I hope it got you thinking about this. And the good news is you got this. The customer success managers already know the answers to a lot of these questions. And yes, it'll take a little bit of workshopping, but you too can map out a value framework for your customer success organization. Value management is essentially the practice of answering these questions for each one of your clients and having these conversations regularly to keep value generation and measurement top of mind. So thank you so much for your attention today, and we'll be moving on to Q&A.
Thank you, Thomas and Lloyd. This was indeed very valuable information, and I know it's taking everyone time to digest and think about their own particularly use case. Any questions or even just thoughts, comments, or that it resonates with your future goals as well in your organization?
Yes, I have a kind of a thought or question that came earlier on in the presentation. How do you, Lloyd, see managing the relationships between the CS role and the sales role? Because they're both client-facing roles, and having been a salesperson, I know that salespeople tend to be very much "don't touch my client" sort of. That sort of mentality, it's older, but it's still very much in the sales world exists. How do you sort of sell the importance of CS to salespeople and be like, no, I'm calling your client for a good reason. I'm not looking to harm that relationship or irritate the client. And at the same time, also get the information from the sales reps that we need to do our role effectively. For example, a client's business outcomes. That was one point that was mentioned.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think sales representatives have a lot to gain in ensuring that the customers that they onboard have great relationships. It ensures that they can have more advocates to refer to and more good success stories that they can bring to their next sales cycle. But also, fostering good relationships, there's a lot in it for your sales representatives because it allows them to upsell other solutions. So having a strong relationship and being able to measure the value is just extra arguments for selling more technology to them or giving them more opportunities to grow the size of the account, which is really the role of an account executive, is to ensure that they're part of the overall strategy of this account, and customer success is a critical part of that. So tight relationship is very important. At Coveo, the business value group acts as a bridge across all of these areas, helping both close more sales and reduce churn by improving value. But we also enable our customer success organization to talk about value in a more regular and widespread basis. Does that answer the question, Santosh?
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
Thomas, do you have anything you would like to add to this topic?
No, you nailed it. As from a CS perspective, it's really at the renewal stage that I have seen just business value as a tool being very powerful for the account execs that I work with. So no, Lloyd, you nailed it.
Awesome. Any other questions?
Or thoughts as well.
All right, Matt Davis says, this was great.
Thank you.
Glad you enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.
Lots to think about. You'll have the recording, and I really encourage you to go back to that one slide where we talk about building the business value framework. Think about those questions and start mapping it out, start workshopping it, take a few of your best colleagues and start thinking about it, because this is really exciting once you can start embarking on that journey and putting together these frameworks. I think your whole organization is going to be very happy to see these types of projects put together. So yeah, appreciate everybody's participation today, and really was a pleasure to share all of this with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, again, thank you very much, Lloyd and Thomas, for sharing your valuable knowledge on this great framework. Definitely, also, I encourage everyone to connect with Thomas and Lloyd on LinkedIn. I'm sure that maybe after listening to the recording, there's going to be a couple of questions and thoughts back to both Thomas and Lloyd. They're going to be happy to answer back and connect with you and continue this great discussion. I do want to take a few minutes to say thank you for your participation, and also to invite you to our next meetup. We have one coming next month.